There are paintings that comfort, and there are paintings that enter your dreams. When Henry Fuseli revealed the Nightmare in 1781, London was horrified. People whispered that the painting was cursed, that if you looked at it too long, you'd see the creature in your sleep. On the canvas, a woman lies draped in white, her body relaxed yet defenseless. On her chest, a dark figure, small, twisted, heavy as guilt itself. Behind them, a horse's head bursts from the shadows, eyes wide, mouth frozen in a silent scream. No angels, no saints, no explanations, just fear, desire, and something you cannot name. When the Nightmare was first displayed, people lined up to see it, and some fainted when they did. Critics called it obscene. Others called it genius. No one had ever seen a painting like this, one that made the invisible visible. Fuseli didn't paint a scene from mythology or history. He painted what happens when a mind sleeps and desire wakes. The demon on the woman's chest was known as an incubus, a creature said to sit upon women as they slept, feeding on their life and their lust. The power of the Nightmare lies in its ambiguity. Is the woman a victim or a willing dreamer? Is this terror or ecstasy? Her body glows with light, her face turned to the void in both surrender and pleasure. The incubus looks not at her, but at us, as if accusing the viewer of voyeurism. Fuseli made us complicit in the dream. We are the ones watching, breathing, judging, and perhaps envying. And then there's a horse, grotesque, unnatural, staring from the darkness like a nightmare given form. Some say it represents the word nightmare itself, the spirit of bad dreams. Others believe it's the embodiment of lust, wild, primal, and unrestrained. But look closely, its eyes are wide with terror. Even the beast is afraid, as if the horror in this room doesn't come from outside, but from within. Few knew that the Nightmare might not have been just a dream, but a confession. Fuseli was obsessed with a woman named Anna Landolt. He wrote her letters filled with longing, fear, and erotic symbolism. When she rejected him, something inside him broke. Soon after, he painted the Nightmare. Some say the sleeping woman is Anna. Others think it's Fuseli's soul, haunted by what he couldn't have. Henry Fuseli was not like other painters of his time. While others painted noble heroes, saints, and polite beauty, Fuseli painted what people try to forget: dreams, lust, and fear. Born in Zurich, raised as a theologian, he once planned to become a priest. But something in him rebelled, something wild, uncontrollable. He left the church, moved to London, and began painting the forbidden. Fuseli believed that art should show not what we see, but what we feel when no one is watching. In 1778, Fuseli met Anna Landolt, the niece of a Swiss friend. She was intelligent, reserved, and utterly uninterested in him. But for Fuseli, that only made her more divine. He wrote her letters filled with religious imagery and erotic metaphors. He called her his angel of darkness. When she finally rejected him, he was devastated. He would never love another woman the same way. And soon after, he gave his paint a body in the Nightmare. The Nightmare is erotic, but not in the way of pleasure. It's the eroticism of fear, paralysis, and surrender. The woman's limp arm, her exposed neck, the soft folds of fabric. Everything is sensual, yet frozen. Fuseli didn't paint the body as an object of desire. He painted desire as a haunting, as something that invades, consumes, and refuses to leave. This was the first time in history that sexuality was shown not as beauty, but as terror. When the painting was first shown, people were furious. Women covered their faces. Men stared too long. Some claimed it was immoral. Others said it was genius. But the Nightmare changed art forever. It made emotion more powerful than reason, the dream stronger than daylight. It was the birth of the Romantic era, where beauty and terror became one. And Fuseli stood at its center, the first artist brave enough to paint desire in the dark. Fuseli painted the Nightmare almost a century before Freud, yet he captured what psychology would later call the subconscious. He understood that our deepest fears are not monsters outside us, but emotions we refuse to face. The sleeping woman is the dreamer. The incubus, her suppressed desire. The horse, her anxiety, charging to the fragile walls of sleep. Everything we see is her, and everything she feels we project onto her body. It is not a horror painting. It is a self-portrait of the human mind. When Freud saw reproductions of the nightmare, he called it the most perfect visualization of repression. He believed the painting embodied the conflict between the ID desire and the superego morality. But Fuseli didn't need theory. He lived it. The same mind that dreamed of angels dreamed of demons, and both wore the same face. Because the nightmare shows that fear and desire are not opposites. They are two sides of the same thought. Every era finds itself reflected in the nightmare. In the 18th century, it was about sin and temptation. In the 20th, psychology and repression. Today, it's about power, control, and the thin line between fantasy and fear. The woman's body is still, but her mind is screaming. The demon sits upon her chest, yet maybe it was invited. Fuseli forces us to ask the question no one dares. What if the things we fear most are the things we secretly want? Fuseli once said, one should paint not what one sees, but what one saw in a dream. And in his dream, the border between body and soul vanished. In the nightmare, flesh becomes spirit, and spirit becomes flesh. Desire is no longer pure. Fear is no longer evil. They merge into one pulse. The painting doesn't ask for moral judgment. It asks for honesty, the honesty to admit that we are creatures of both darkness and light. What makes the nightmare eternal is not what it shows, but what it hides. The shadows in the painting seem alive, ready to move when the viewer blinks. The light doesn't illuminate, it seduces. Fuseli painted not a scene, but a moment, that thin breath between dreaming and waking, between pleasure and terror. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. You feel it like the weight of something sitting quietly on your chest. The nightmare changed how artists saw emotion. It inspired Delacroix, Blake, Goya, and later, the Surrealists. In cinema, it became the DNA of horror and desire, from Hitchcock's shadows to Lynch's dreams. But more than that, it changed how we see ourselves. It whispered that art is not about control, but surrender, that what terrifies us may also define us. When you look at the nightmare, it feels like the dream is watching you back. The incubus gaze pierces through centuries, not at the woman, but at the viewer. It's as if Fuseli painted a mirror disguised as a nightmare. You think you're looking at her, but she's you, your fears, your longing, your guilt, and somewhere in that darkness, the dream still breathes, waiting for you to close your eyes. In the end, the nightmare is not a warning. It's an invitation to enter the space where beauty and horror are one, to see that what we desire and what we fear are born from the same darkness. Henry Fuseli painted not a woman. He painted the moment every soul meets its shadow. And the question that remains is simple. When you dream tonight, who will be sitting on your chest?